So he stopped. He stopped in his truck, and he was um, hoping that whoever the person was would walk away from him, and then he would continue his hunting alone. But when he stopped, the very moment that he stopped, he realized that the person had also stopped, and this really frightened him. He knew that he was in trouble now. So he stood there for a bit, terrified, not knowing what to do. But um, he actually wanted to get back home, so he had to move on. But the only way that he could do that was to go past the woman, whoever she was. And so he quickly resolved to do that, no matter what, no matter the consequences, and then he hurried up. Um, but this time, as he did that, the person did not move, so he was getting closer and closer to the person. The person did not turn, did not move, just standing still. Now, this 59-year-old man shared some creepy experiences that he has had out in the forest at night when he went for hunting. Now, in the little town of Asante Agunam in the Ashanti region of Ghana, where he lives, hunting is more than a pastime. It is a critical supplement to their livelihood. It's a necessary vocation that they cannot do without. So these men mostly go hunting in the thick forest surrounding their little town during the night, and that's because that turns out to be the best time that they can find game, and that's also mostly because these animals tend to sleep during the daytime to avoid their natural predators, and they come out during the night to find food. So these hunters, yeah, they go out to hunt for these animals mostly during the night, and sometimes they go together in groups, and other times they go alone. Now, when these hunters go hunting, occasionally they have some strange, inexplicable, and creepy encounters and incidents that is hard to explain. He recounts on a particular night he was walking on a forest path in the night with his torchlight on his forehead, and as he walked on the path, he heard a rustling on top of a tree close by, and as he looked up, they have their torches on their forehead. So as he looked up on the tree, he could see the eyes of an animal shining on top of the tree. Now, that's very normal, because in darkness, the eyes of animals can reflect the light from a torchlight, and they seem to be shining. So that's what he saw, and he knew. So there was an animal on top of the tree. He raised his gun, aimed at it, and he shot. And he had the animal drop from the tree. So he walked the few steps from where he was standing to the base of the tree, and there the animal was lying there. He picked it up and put it in his sock. And as he turned around to retrace his steps back to where he was standing originally, he could not find the path. Now, what made this surprising was that this was a very familiar path that he always took. He knew the place very well. So it was not possible that he would get lost where he was standing. But he could not find the path. According to this man, he spent over 2 hours looking for the path. Remember that he had only walked a few steps from where he was standing when he shot at the animal to the base of the tree. And now, coming back, he could not find the path. He was lost. He could not find his way back. So this man roamed the forest for over 2 hours trying to get back to the path so he could get home. And he could not find the path. In the end, he was forced to make a little clearing where he was standing. And he sat down in his perplexity to this happening to him. And he was tired also, so he leaned his head on the tree trunk, and barely about 30 minutes later, it started to rain very heavily. He had nowhere to go, so he got drenched, just sitting there in the mud and waiting out the night. After the rain, he says that he was overtaken by sleep, and so he slept, and When his eyes opened, it was dawn, day was breaking, and he stood up to start his search again. But to his amazement, there right in front of him was the path that he had spent the entire night looking for. He was back in the familiar place he knew very well, and he hadn't moved. That was the very place that he had been looking for, the path for hours on end the previous night. So now he could walk back home and tell his story. But like I said in the beginning, this hunting was something that they needed to do. You might have thought that having gone through an experience like that, he would probably stop hunting or wouldn't probably go back to the forest, but they had to. So he continued hunting as usual. But then he said that on another night, when he found himself alone in the forest again, this time he was walking on the path and he could see the shadowy figure of a person in front of him. Normally what would happen in the forest was that when they met somebody else in the forest, they would call out a greeting or just to acknowledge the person, and that was the normal practice they did because it was lonely and dark in the forest, and it helped to know that there was somebody else there and all of that. So he called out to this person that was walking ahead of him on the path, and there was no response. He thought that the person might not have heard him, so he called out again, and again there was no response. So he thought that, well, let me quicken my steps so that I would probably get nearer to this person, and then I would call out or engage in a chat or something. So he quickened his steps, and he realized after some time that the distance between them was the same. He wasn't getting any closer to this person, although he was walking faster, and that was odd. But then he realized something even stranger. He saw that the person that was walking ahead of him was a woman. What made this strange was that women did not hunt in the night, and this particular woman looked very out of place. But on top of that, she was not holding a gun. She was not holding a torchlight. So she had been walking on the path alone in total darkness, and that didn't make any sense. Okay, so that kind of made him feel very uneasy and disturbed. So he slowed down. He slowed way down, and thought that let me just let this person walk on, and so that I'll be alone and hunt, and so he slowed down his pace. After a while, he again saw that the distance between them still remained the same. There was no change to the distance, and that again didn't make any sense because he had slowed way down. So how was it possible that this other person walking ahead of him, who could not see him because he was the person walking behind this woman, she could not see him because she was facing away from him, and yet it appeared that she could tell when he was walking faster or when he was walking slowly, so that she could pace her pace in harmony with his, and that didn't make any sense, so it got him afraid. He began thinking to himself, is this a real human being that I'm seeing in front of me, or was it something else? So he stopped in his tracks, and his idea was to make the person move away entirely so that he would be alone. He had actually finished hunting, so he needed to get back home. But when he stopped, he realized that the person, that shadowy figure right ahead of him that he could see clearly, had also stopped, and that was terrifying to him. He said that he was really terrified this time, and he did not know what to do. He stood there watching this figure, also standing still. But the woman did not turn to look at him. It was just standing there, and well, he thought about his situation for a moment, and then he decided that he needed to get back home. He could not stay here with this creepy woman, whatever she was, in this darkness alone. Didn't know what might happen next, so he decided to walk straight past the woman because that was the only way to get back home, to go forward. So he resolved to move forward in spite of his fear, and as he did that, he realized that the figure was not moving anymore. It was still standing there. So this time he was getting closer to her. So he did that, and he actually went right past the woman, on this small narrow path. But as he did that, according to him, he says that he doesn't know what came over him, because all his instincts told him to just go forward, just keep going. But right when he passed the woman by, he turned to look at her face. He turned to look at the woman's face, and as he did that, he got the shock of his life. According to him, he could see the woman very clearly, and so he was able to confirm that it was a woman. But as he looked at the woman's face, his heart sunk, because the woman standing there had no face. I don't know what to make of this, but that's what he said, that this woman had no face. There were no facial features. There were no eyes, there was no nose, no mouth, nothing. And she wasn't wearing any mask, according to him. So that was the height of it, So he didn't know how he got out of there, but he just kept moving as fast as he could to get away from this thing. And as he did that, he got further away from the woman, and he looked back again. And this time, he could see that the woman had started moving again towards him. And so he quickened his steps in the darkness, probably and until he got to a fork in the road, and he branched towards where his house probably was, out of the bushes. And that was it, but nothing happened to him. But he went on to say that such creepy encounters are things that occasionally happen to them out in the bush, in the forest, during the night. That particular night, he said it was about 2 a.m. at night when that happened to him. And he has no explanation for it. Nobody can explain who these people are. Are they ghosts? Are they spirits? What are they? Certainly, it is not normal to see someone without facial features. Was it an apparition? Whatever it was, he has no explanation. He has no answer. But these are experiences that he went through himself in the night in the forest. He also has said that sometimes they would see orbs of light in trees that they could not explain and all of that. But again, he has no knowledge of what they are, except to say that he knows that there probably are other forces or whatever in isolated places that if you venture out, probably at the wrong time of night or whatever, you can experience. Tell me what you think. I don't have any answers myself, but I know that these things actually do happen sometimes, and there are probably things that we don't think about every day, but they are, I think, part of life's mystery. Thank you for watching, and see you again in my next video.